Welcome back to another episode of Why Do I Do That? Today's question is, why do I fear that I will never be truly happy or at peace? And the first thing that came to my mind was, what is this person's perception, or what is your perception of truly happy and at peace? Like, I straight away think we're not always going to always feel happy or always feel at peace. That's a little bit unattainable, if you will. But I guess the question must be coming from this person of like, why do I feel like I'll never get there? And I actually had a client just the other day that was like, she literally had a belief in her subconscious mind of, I will never get there. And a lot of the time what I find with myself and with clients is that we've actually arrived at where we wanted to get to, especially if you've been doing a lot of healing work. But sometimes we don't realize because we're always moving the bar. So first thing that I would be saying to this person is like, what does truly happy look like? Like, not in a materialistic way, not in the way of like, you know, it's this income or it's this job or it's this house or it's this certain dollar figure or this many friends or whatever it is. What does it actually feel like? Like, what does truly happy actually feel like? So what does it look like when you wake up in the morning? What does your day look like? What does it feel like to live? And who's this version of you that's living this truly happy life? So a lot of the time we focus on the goals and we don't focus on like the why. And what I mean by this is it's like, I could set a goal of I want to achieve X dollar figure amount. And then to get to that goal, I have to hustle a certain amount. And I have to push and push to reach that goal. And in the process of doing that, I'm completely miserable because where I want to get to is feeling financially free. Okay, what does financially free look like on a day-to-day basis? It looks like being down the beach. It looks like being with my kids. It looks like, for me, going to the health food store and doing my whole shop organic. And it looks like something that actually could be attainable right now. And the reason that I struggle often, and I'm saying this as a personal example, is that I lose sight of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think that this is one of the reasons why people often can't be truly happy, is because they lose sight of their why. You have to know why you're doing what you're doing, and you almost have to find ways that you can live as if that is happening, that as if you are already there, as if you have already arrived. And this is like manifesting 101. People talk about, you know, vision boards and all of these different manifesting things. But really what it is about is being in the energy of where you want to be in the future right now. So feeling grateful for what you have right now so that you can attract more into your life through gratitude. And so I think what happens with a lot of people is that they worry so much that they're not going to be truly happy, that they rob themselves of the happiness of right now. They're so worried about, how am I going to get to this version of life that feels good, that feels happy? How am I going to get to this picture perfect life that I'm imagining? And they're stressing about it. And in that process of stressing and of worrying and of hustling and of pushing, they're moving further and further away from the happiness till they get to the point where they're like, what's the fucking point of this? Like, why am I even doing this? And then they burn out, and then because they've forgotten why they're doing it, because they're so far away from feeling the way that they want to feel. So like on paper, it looks like, yes, you're moving towards your goal, but in your body and in your life, it feels wrong. It feels so far away from where you want to be. And this is why people go through this burnout cycle, or these cycles of pushing and then quitting, and then pushing towards something and then quitting, pushing, quitting. They just go through this cycle because they're so used to just the hustle and they're so used to the pushing. So one of the reasons why you may not be truly happy is because the way that you're living right now isn't in line with your values, and it's not in line with where you want to go. The other part to this is that people think that you're supposed to be happy all the time, or they expect that once they've done the healing work that they should be happy all the time. And as soon as they experience some negative emotions, they're like, what's wrong with me? Why am I struggling? Why is this here? But the reality is, being a human is to struggle and to suffer as well. You know, you numb the dark and you numb the light. And what happens is, if we're so afraid of our negative emotions, we numb ourselves. And when we numb ourselves, we also numb the good. And so we have to get used to, and we have to understand that there are going to be times where we struggle, and that's just human and that's just natural and normal. It doesn't mean that you're not truly happy just because you had a bad day or just because you have some old emotions resurfacing. So getting comfortable with your emotions and getting comfortable with the fact that you are going to have obstacles. There's that quote that's like, you don't climb the mountain to just get to the top of the mountain. Like, you climb the mountain for the journey and the experience. And I've actually posted on social media, if I died, I would want to be sent back to earth so that I could experience grocery shopping 1,000 more times and getting my heart broken and crying in the bathroom and being with my friends. And, for me, going down the beach, whatever it is, it's like, once you realize that those experiences, it's all about feeling. It's all about feeling. And we think happiness is like the goal of life, but really what it is aliveness. And you can't be alive and be numb at the same time. It's impossible. You have to either be open to feeling it all, which means the good and the bad, or you're numb. Like, there is no kind of like separating, I'm just going to feel the happy emotions and push away all of the bad. It just doesn't work. So again, coming back to the point, like, we have to, life is beautiful. Like, even the sadness and the grief and the hurt and the suffering can be beautiful as well. And that is part of being human. So getting comfortable with that and looking at, just because you're having these uncomfortable emotions coming up doesn't mean that you're not truly happy. It's just part of being a human. Another reason why I believe personally that people fear that they'll never be truly happy is because they never truly step into who they want to become. And I actually remember, it was funny, I was thinking about this on the way in here today. I remember saying to my ex-husband over and over, like, I would have monthly breakdowns over the 11 years that we were together. And I would say to him, it feels like I'm in this box and I'm trying to be really happy in this little box, but it feels like my soul is so much bigger than this box and what I'm meant for is so much bigger than this box. But every time I try to step out of this little box, something bad happens or I get shut down or I get put down, but it just feels like I'm trying to exist within this little box. And I would draw this box and I would talk about this box. And it felt like until I was outside of this box, I could never be truly happy. And I talked about the box so much that one day I was just like, what is the box? Like, is the box real or is the box my perception? Or is the box society or is it him? Because I was always saying to him, like, you're putting me into this box, when in reality, like, me saying to him, you're putting me into this box was actually me completely giving away my power, because I was the one that was allowing myself to be kept in the box. And I was never going to be truly happy until I got out of that box. Like, my soul was just dying to break out of it. And so I looked at what the box was and I literally drew a picture and I wrote down, okay, here's the box, here's me. What's inside the box? Like, who do I have to be while I'm in this box? And if I bursted out of that, who would I be? And I drew this picture and it was like all of these things outside of the box was like, I'd be powerful, I'd be a speaker, I'd be this, I'd be that, I'd be wild, I'd be ruthless, I'd be sexy, I'd be all of these things. And then inside the box, it was like, this is who you have to be. Like, you have to be kind, you have to be self-sacrificing, you have to be a good mom, you have to be a good wife. And I wrote down all of those things and I looked at, okay, what would be the worst thing that could happen if I did just fully break out of this box and become this big version of myself? Because that's what it felt like. It was like I had to stay small to stay inside the box. And I knew that I was afraid of that bigness, but I was like, why? And I feel like so many women, and maybe men too, will relate to this, in that it's like, what happens if I become too big? It's almost, we think that it's scary to live our lives staying small, but then as soon as you try to break out of the box, it's like, oh, that's even scarier. That's way scarier. That's unknown. And so I started to realize that the box was actually made up of my own rules and my own limiting subconscious beliefs. Like, the box was literally, you can't be this and you can't be that, because if you do, no one will like you. No one will love you. You'll end up alone. You'll become someone that nobody likes, nobody can relate to. Everyone that you love right now, you will lose. Like that was essentially what the box was doing. It was keeping me safe from ending up alone. And obviously, if you can't tell, I broke the box. I smashed the box and dived out of the box. And I'm not alone, and it doesn't end up that way. But I was so firm on believing that this box was the truth and that this box was keeping me safe. But my soul was like, it's keeping me safe, and I know it's keeping me safe, but I so badly want to jump out of that box. And I thought I was alone in this. I thought I was, that not all women felt like this, until I started speaking to my clients and my friends, and it was like, oh no, every woman wants to get out of the box that, that they've created, that their parents created for them, that society has created of who they have to be, what a, good wife, girlfriend, whatever is. And everybody wants more, everybody wants bigger, everybody wants their soul to, jump out of that box, but we're afraid, and we're afraid of losing people. So I started to look at, okay, do I have more of a chance of being happy inside the box, or do I have more of a chance of being happy outside of the box? And bit by bit, I started to break down that box. And really what that was my limiting subconscious beliefs. So it was like, if I do X, X will happen. And then I would look at, okay, what's the belief there? The belief is I'm not worthy. I don't deserve it. It's not possible for me. It's not possible for someone like me. A lot of things came up around like moving too far beyond where I had been raised, coming from a lower socioeconomic upbringing and a father who was, criminal and things like that, going to this version. It was like, that's too much of a jump. That would just be me pretending, and it didn't feel like me. So I then had to do a lot of identity work, which brings me back to that point of like, you can't be truly happy in your life until you are a version of yourself that you love, because true happiness comes from that like almost authenticity. And authenticity is a word that's just like thrown around, and it's like, be your authentic self, be your authentic self. But it's like, how the fuck do we do that? And really what it is it's like moving towards who you desire to become. And if you have this pull to become somebody who is, I had this pull to become someone who was a speaker and who spoke at events, and I wouldn't have dreamt a podcast, but here I am. But you have these desires to be something. And if you don't follow those desires, I don't believe that you can find that true happiness, because that's like your soul, your consciousness, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, guiding you to like, this is where you want to be. And the only reason that you don't find that true happiness and get there is because you let that box, which is your own mind, your own subconscious limiting beliefs, stop you. And you might say the way that I said, oh, it's my husband. Like, he puts me in the box, because when I started to do X, Y, Z, he was like, oh, that's stupid, or you're this, or no one will buy that, or whatever. Like, he was putting the limits on me, but really I was choosing to take on his opinions. I was choosing to ask the wrong person for advice. I was choosing to allow those opinions on and take them on. And I was choosing to believe it. I was choosing to continue to believe that I had to be all of those things that I had been taught. And if you think about the box, it really is made up of, it's not you, it's your parents, it's what they said to you, it's what your teachers said to you, it's what your peers said to you, it's who people told you that you could and couldn't be. And it's so funny, I think back to high school, as soon as I said teachers, I think about, there was this one coordinator that I had, Mr. Neil. And I remember him always saying to me, like, you'll never amount to anything. You'll never amount to anything. He was just a nasty guy, but he was always saying these things to me. And then when I got out of high school, it was just like this thing in my head of just like, well, I wasn't good in high school. I didn't get a good enter score. I'm not going to amount to anything. And those things got added to my box, which kept me small. And all of those things that people say to you, you pick up and you collect and you create them as subconscious beliefs. And all of a sudden, once you start doing this work, you realize like, oh, just because Mr. Neil said that I'll never amount to anything, because he's got all his own shit to say that to a teenage girl, and he's just projecting his pain onto me. It's actually not truth if I don't believe it to be true. all of a sudden the box blows open and your mind blows open and you go, oh, actually, I can do anything. Anything is possible. And once your perception changes to anything is possible, anything literally is possible because you can make it happen. So coming back to the point, I feel like the fear of never being truly happy also comes from the fear of never truly being yourself, of never actually truly leaving the box. And it's scary, but it's also exciting to be able to leave that box, to jump out of that box. So my advice to this person would be like, start to write down not just what you think will make you happy, because happy is such a wishy-washy word. I want you to start writing down, what do you actually need to do every day that's going to make you feel alive? Like, what's going to make you feel like you are fully alive? Because as I said, alive doesn't necessarily mean happy. It does mean happy, and it can mean excited and joyful and in the flow, but it can also sometimes mean fear. Like, I've felt fear so many times when I've felt alive. Like, I remember the first time I came to record a podcast, like I felt so alive and excited that I was doing something new, but I also felt afraid, but I felt super alive. And I feel like if we shift that perception from happiness to aliveness, we're going to stop numbing in that process, because you're going to feel the fear and you're going to do it anyway. And then you're going to feel even more alive because you've pushed through that. So I think we need to switch that thinking around and go, okay, what's one thing I can do today that's going to make me feel alive? And for me, it'll be doing something new. It'll be doing something that scares me. So I often write down, if I wasn't afraid, I would. And then I like write ... and I have to like fill in the sentence with the first thing that comes to mind. And sometimes it will be like, it'll just be something stupid and it'll be something small. And sometimes it will be like a huge thing, like leave my husband, like a massive life-altering thing. But what comes up at each time is completely different. So start using that sentence of, if I wasn't afraid, I would. Pop whatever it is down and then start to push yourself to move towards that. And I can guarantee once you start moving through those fears, you're going to get more aligned with your happy or aliveness. And then start incorporating them into your everyday life. So for me, some days it's just like, I know that I feel super alive when I jump in the ocean because I'm a secret mermaid, but I feel like I've always lived by the ocean. I've always loved the ocean. And whenever I dive under, I feel like everything's just gone and washed away and I feel alive again. So for me, I know that that's something I need to do. But even further to that, I know that like jumping off a really high jetty will also make me feel alive, and just little things like that I know I can do as like a daily, weekly thing. But then I'm always looking at, okay, what's the next thing that's going to make me feel super alive, that's out of my comfort zone, that's a little bit bigger, and then pushing towards that. And so far, a few years into doing that, and I feel like I don't question whether I'm going to be truly happy. I just am happy each day. And if I have negative emotions come up, it's just like, oh, cool. Like, this is that polarity of life. Got a bit of sadness, had a bit of happiness. I've got a little bit of fear, but I've also got a bit of excitement, and my emotions don't rule me anymore. So that would be my tips, my advice. If you know somebody who has this fear or is constantly trying to figure out how to be happy, definitely send them this episode, and thank you for listening.